Acast powers the world's best podcasts. Here's a show that we recommend.
The Real Housewives is a guilty pleasure for most, but if you're looking to not feel guilty about that pleasure, tune in to Everything Iconic with me, Danny Pellegrino, where I break down all the messy moments and behind-the-scenes antics of Bravo's popular franchise. And on Everything Iconic, I also interview celebrity guests like Kelly Ripa, Keke Palmer, Drew Barrymore, Cameron Diaz, and more about their guilty pleasures, their past work, and so much more. So if you're pop culture obsessed and find yourself watching way too much reality TV like me, tune into Everything Iconic with Danny Pellegrino, wherever you listen to podcasts.
Acast helps creators launch, grow, and monetize their podcasts everywhere. Acast.com.
Hello, Ground Passers, and welcome to another episode of Ground Pass. We have this week for you a mini pod, a very exciting mini pod. We have a few voice notes that came in from a listener and also from Nick, who visited a tournament this week, and we're going to all wrap it up in under 30 minutes. So, how has everyone recovered from Roland Garros? It took me a few days. Watched back the Carlos Alcaraz and Jannik Sinner final a few times, but I finally slowly started watching some tennis, getting back into the groove of things. And if you saw the video that I released on TikTok a couple of days ago, yesterday, you'll know why I'm excited for the week coming up, and I'm rejuvenated and rested now, and ready for the grass that is already here. And Wimbledon is 2 weeks away. Insane. Crazy stuff. So yeah, what's been going on this week? What have I been watching? And I have to say, all eyes were on Queens. The Queens were back at Queens, and it was really exciting to see the WTA return to Queens, since the last time women played at Queens was 1973. That's a long time. Over 50 years, if I'm doing my math correctly. I think it's over 50 years. I think I'm doing my math right. But yeah, it was really great to see the tournament back there. And, you know, I wasn't really paying attention to every single match. Like I said before, I was recovering from Roland Garros. So trying to keep things chill and easy. But the one thing I noticed as I started watching matches was Emma Raducanu looks great on grass. I think one of the very first matches I watched was actually a doubles match where Emma Raducanu teamed up with Katie Boulter, team name Balticanu. Yes, we are loving it. We are loving the team name. But they teamed up to play doubles at Queens, and that was one of the first matches I watched, and it was just fun. I think, especially when you're trying to ease back into tennis, I actually suggest watching doubles. It's a little easier, a little low stakes. Not low stakes because they're still playing for the big prizes and the titles and things like that. But, you know, matches aren't as long. So it was just a nice, easy way to ease back into watching live tennis again. And they just looked like they were having fun on court. So that also helped as well with me getting back into the swing of things. But that transition to, let me just catch a few Emma Raducanu matches when she's playing singles. And boy, did she look good. Her first two matches at Queens, she absolutely crushed. I mean, I think her first match was done in about an hour, and grass is fast already, faster than clay. So what you'll notice as we transition from the clay season to the grass season is matches are going to be a little faster. With clay, you grind a lot. Matches can be super long, hence a 4.5 hour final. But yeah, matches on grass are much quicker, and Emma Raducanu was flying through her matches, which was really great. Another player who was looking pretty good at Queens was the Queen, Qinwen. It was really funny actually watching her matches. She had this thing a few times. I think in some of her earlier rounds, she fell a few times in the middle of her opponents. I think it was the match she was playing against Emma Raducanu, and Emma was serving for the match, and Qinwen stopped to fix her shoe or switch her shoe, and she definitely was a little bit of a Bambi on ice situation when it came to movement on grass. She did it twice. She did it again when she played Amanda Anisimova. So she definitely seems to be having issues with her shoes. Definitely something to look out for. But otherwise, I mean, she played really well. She was the top seed coming into this tournament, and she got all the way to the semifinals. A really great showing in her first grass court tournament of the year. And who else was, I think not a lot of people talked about McCartney Kessler this tournament, but I watched a few of her matches as well, and she's such I don't know how to say it, but she's almost just like a hidden secret, I think, on the WTA. She just pops out of nowhere sometimes, and you're thinking, how in the world is she playing this well, and why is she not ranked higher than she is? She's new to the tour. I think this is only her second year on tour, and she's much older. I think when you talk about sometimes people being in their second year on tour, you're thinking, okay, they're sort of like in their late teens or sort of very, very early 20s. She's in her mid-20s. First time I think I kind of started paying attention to her was when she beat Coco Gauff in, it was either Doha or Dubai. It was one of the Middle Eastern 1,000 level events, and that was sort of like the shock wave that I think announced her onto the scene. She had a great tournament there. She came to Indian Wells, also had a great tournament at Indian Wells, and I've kind of been following her throughout. I would just say McCartney Kessler is definitely someone to watch during this grass season because she played really, really well at Queens, and really, she's just such a confident player. You watch her playing, and she's playing against top players, and she just doesn't show it. She just walks around the court feeling and looking like she is the ish, like she is going to win this match. And I kind of love that confidence in players, especially when they come across the top 10 players of the world, if you want to say that. But yeah, in general, Queens was great, but I have to say, the story of Queens was Tatjana Maria. And Tatjana Maria, I was not familiar with your game. Wow. Slicey Dicey. Can we call her that? Maybe that's going to be her new nickname. But Slicey Dicey Tatjana Maria absolutely shocked the draw. Everyone she came across, it was actually so hilarious to watch. I mean, probably not hilarious for the players who were across the net from her, but for me watching, she played Leylah Fernandez, Karolina Muchova, Elena Rybakina, Madison Keys, and Amanda Anisimova to win the title. That is not an easy run of players at all. But what happened with every single one of those players is there would just be a moment in the match where they would be standing in the middle of their side on court just thinking, what is going on? What is happening? Why is she slicing and dicing so much? Some of the rallies were hilarious. She had one today. Today was the final. I'm recording on Sunday. But she had one against Amanda Anisimova that was just a mix of lobs. It was just, she would lob, and, Amanda Anisimova would hit a backhand, and then she would lob it back, and then it would be a smash, and then she would lob it back, and then it was a volley. Like, it was one of the most hilarious things I've ever watched, and she ended up winning the point, and the look of absolute, it was a mix of anger, devastation, confusion on Amanda Anisimova's face. It was a lot. It was definitely a lot to watch, but fun. And what a winner. Tatjana Maria is now the oldest winner of a 500 title on the WTA Tour. She is 37 years old. I believe she's turning 38 in a couple of months. So she's on that Novak Djokovic age range there. And she's just someone, here's the thing, coming into this tournament, she was on a losing streak. She had lost about 8 or 9 matches in a row. And then she shows up at Queens. By the way, she played qualies to get into the main draw, won all her matches in qualies, won all the matches in the main draw, and took home the title. She has 2 daughters who were at all her matches. And it was just such a lovely, lovely story to kind of kickstart the grass season for me anyway. It definitely gave me a lot of energy just watching her and just being this unlikely winner, you know. But that's tennis. Sometimes I think we forget, and I always say this, but sometimes people just look at a draw and they look at the number next to a player's name and they think, well, one person's going to beat the other based on ranking. And I think a tournament like Queens and a player like Tatjana Maria shows that ranking isn't everything. When you have specific skills on a specific surface, you can just beat anyone. And that's what she did. So yeah, Queens was really great. Here's the thing. The Queens were at Queens. Now the Kings have arrived. So this week, the Kings are coming to Queens, and we had a listener who has contributed to the podcast before, Kvittycat on X and Blue Sky. I will leave their handles in the description of this podcast or the comments, wherever. But she went to watch the WTA at Queens, and she sent us a voice note, which I think if you're gonna be going to Queens this week to watch the ATP, I think it is pretty much sold out, but there's still a few tickets hanging about, but very, very few. But if you already have tickets and you're gonna go, or you're planning to go next year, I think this is such an excellent voice note to kind of give you an idea of what it's like on the grounds.
Hi there, just a quick voice note on my experiences at the new WTA Queens event. I went for day 1 yesterday, down in London. First time the women have played a women's event for about 50 years, I think. I hadn't planned to go to day 1. I had a ticket for Friday, but Petra Kvitova was playing, and Petra's one of my faves. So I got a ticket the night before for 50 quid and made my way down. Actually getting to Queen's Club, I would say Barons Court Tube Station is a 2-minute walk. So using the public transport, good way. Unless there's delays on the line like I had yesterday, annoyingly. The site itself is quite compact. It's in the middle of a fairly well-to-do residential area. There are quite a lot of courts, but the only ones that are used are the main centre court, the Andy Murray Arena, Court 1 and Court 5. The other courts are for practices. The main arena, the Andy Murray Arena, is quite big but not huge. So I was in row Y, and I've been at the top of, centre court at Wimbledon when the players are like dots in the distance, but good views, nice views of the court. For the Ground Pass people, Court 1 is, 500 seats, a bit more than that maybe. And for this particular day, the big match out there that everybody wanted to get into was Emma Raducanu and Katie Boulter playing doubles. That was packed. Stood no chance of getting into there. So if you are planning to see somebody particularly, check out the order of play so you know, and stake out your seat, because you have to stay there once you get up to go to the loo or to get something to eat. You've gone to the back of the queue. I did try Court 5. Barbara Krejcikova was playing doubles there, another of my faves. So I thought, Court 5, it's small. Also long queues. I spent all of set 1 with a nice view of a white fence and nothing else. Finally, partway through set 2, I managed to get a seat and ended up right behind a pillar. So not a great seat, not a great view. It's a small court. So I would say if you do plan to come to Queens, get a cheap ticket on the main arena. High up is still good. And if you know there's somebody you want to see on the outside courts, make your way there early, perhaps just as the previous match is finished. In terms of the site itself and the grounds, I didn't try food and drink. I tend to find these places, it's usually overpriced and not very nice, so I took my own snacks. There's a water station, sort of filtered water, that's good, so I filled up my water bottle and ate my snacks. I went to the toilets early in the day. They were nice and roomy and clean. But later on in the day, things got a bit grottier. So as always, when you go to these events. In terms of the other foods and drinks, there are a number of coffee places and carts, and there was even one over the far side by some of the practice courts, actually, where you could get some coffee and sit and watch that. Something that bugged me, literally every 2 minutes, planes go over. Large planes, clearly the flight path to Heathrow. So you do have to get used to noise of the planes. But to be honest, for a day out at an event, it was good. I enjoyed it. Something that struck me is the different types of people that you get at these events. And as a tennis fan, what you find is an awful lot of people go to these events who don't actually know loads about tennis. I had people behind me, one couple who just spent the entire day talking about work pretty loudly. Then some others who, were enjoying themselves but didn't know anything about tennis. Didn't know who Kvittycat was or anything about the other players. And a nice elderly couple next to me who liked tennis, but they only really liked the British players. And that was what I would say generally a lot of the people there were mainly interested in Brits. And they stacked the schedule with them today. So it was Cartel and Burridge on main court and, as I said, Bolter and Raducanu playing doubles. But yes, so a lot of people, real mix, a lot of British events, UK events. The tennis crowd's quite old, a lot of older people. But I thought there was a fair mix, probably a bigger mix than I've seen at some of the others. Families, there were some kids, not loads, but, some. Young, old, groups of friends, families, couples, a few singles. And, a mix of different people. Lots of staff that were very helpful. Security checks, really fast. The tickets are all dealt with using the LTA Courtside app with the QR code, so that was dead easy. Thought it was well organised, to be honest, getting people in, helping you find your seats and things like that. So I would say visit, if you get a chance to visit, get those cheap seats on the main court, check out and make sure that you find out who's playing where, and stake out your seat early if you want to go to one of the outside courts. Thank you.
I think this is just such an excellent voice note to give you an idea of what it's like on the grounds. So thank you, Kvittycat, for sending us a voice note. And if you're going to a tournament this week or any week in general, please send us a voice note. Let us know how it goes. We like to keep them sort of between the 3 to 5 minute mark, and we can insert them in a podcast. But we love hearing directly from people on the grounds because Nick and I can't go to every single tournament, but we want to help our viewers or our audience learn about these tournaments so they can plan ahead if they want to go next year. The boys didn't really watch much of the ATP this week, but I did watch the finals at Stuttgart only because I have a tennis group chat and I talk to friends about tennis, and I had seen the final at Stuttgart was going to be between Taylor Fritz and Alexander Zverev. Great. I wasn't really planning on watching it until a friend of mine said, Taylor Fritz has beaten Zverev 4 times in a row. And I had forgotten about this. I had completely forgotten about that storyline, which was a big storyline last year. So I, of course, thought, can he do it for a 5th time in a row? He did, guys. Spoiler, if you haven't watched it, he did. Taylor Fritz defeated Alexander Zverev for the 5th time in a row to win the Stuttgart Open. And technically it's called the Boss Open, which happens to be Taylor's apparel sponsor. So lucky for the tournament that the guy who wears their clothes is also the guy who won the tournament. But Zverev definitely has a problem with Taylor Fritz. He made jokes in the sort of award ceremony telling him never to come back to Germany. But Zverev is such an interesting tennis player. He's ranked number 3 in the world and currently has this interesting head-to-head against Taylor Fritz, which I would equate a little bit to the head-to-head between Iga Swiatek and Jelena Ostapenko. That's a fun head-to-head as well. But yeah, Zverev also, I just think, has a thing about finals. He just doesn't win them. It's really fascinating. He has won a title this year. He won Munich, in which he won against Ben Shelton. That was on clay. I would give Zverev the sort of edge on that surface compared to Ben Shelton. But yeah, very interesting situation. Definitely something he probably will need to work on if he ever wants to win that elusive Grand Slam. Speaking of Ben Shelton, he is a top 10 player. That's right, Ben Shelton is now ranked number 10 in the world. That means we have 3 Americans in the top 10. Taylor Fritz, Tommy Paul, and Ben Shelton. That hasn't happened in a lot of years. I'm actually going to make a little mini reel video for our TikTok and Instagram. So if you're not following us there, please follow us. That's where we do a lot of sort of short, informative videos. We have a few series. We've got This Week in Tennis. We've got coffee catch-ups. We now have something we like to call tennis lessons, which are really fun. We talk about a lot of different topics there and sort of concepts within tennis. So definitely going to be talking about the Americans in the top 10 and are they going to win that elusive Grand Slam? What's next? That was pretty much it tennis-wise. Again, it was really easy breezy tennis-wise this week. Didn't want to push it. I'm going to be diving right back in this week because I think that's when everything kind of fires up a little bit and we really get into sort of the pre-Wimbledon prep for a lot of players. But before we jump into what's happening next week, I want to talk about a few things that kind of just caught my eye that, you know, are tennis adjacent. I will start with Coco Gauff's championship tour of New York. This was really fun to watch, but obviously Coco Gauff is the current Roland Garros champion. And in between sort of last week when she was taking time off after winning that trophy, she came to New York and went on a bit of a media tour. She did the morning shows, she went to Jimmy Fallon, and then she went to a Liberty game where she got one of the biggest ovations I have seen of a non-basketball player at a basketball game. Like, it was epic. And Ellie, if you don't know who Ellie is, I'll put a photo somewhere on the screen, or I will link the video of Ellie, the Liberty mascot, meeting Coco Gauff. I'll put that in the description of this episode. It was just such a great moment, and seeing Coco Gauff go through this championship tour and everyone pretty much for a whole week in the States just talking about tennis, that hardly ever happens, you know, and it's nice to have a star like Coco represent the sport in the States and kind of bring it back into the minds of casual fans. You know, I think there are a lot of people picking up rackets. There are a lot of people caring about like tennis. We put out one of our little videos and everyone was like, oh, I didn't know Coco was playing Berlin next. And, you know, they're interested now. And that's exciting. I love when people get to know tennis. It's a great sport. And I mean, if you're watching this or listening to this and you are just becoming a tennis fan because Coco Gauff won Roland Garros, let us know. Drop a note in the comments, tell us, reach out, ask questions if you have any. We're always looking for ideas of what next to talk about in tennis lessons. So if you have any tennis specific questions that you've always wondered, why does this happen this way? Let us know. So that was fun. Another fun thing that I'm super obsessed with is, I don't know if you have seen, I'm sure you have at this point, but Sloane Stephens looks throughout Roland Garros. I had an entire group chat dedicated to what Sloane Stephens was going to be wearing at Roland Garros, because every day it was a look. Every single day she slayed. It was one of the best kind of runs of fashion looks I've ever seen. And her stylist, who is Brittany Hampton, posted some of the looks on her Instagram. I'll leave a link below so you can take a look at them, and I will put some on the screen as well if you're watching this on YouTube. But they were just so great. Some of my favorite, I wrote these all down, but some of my favorites were, she had this mirror coat, I would say. It was a black coat and had these sort of like polka dots, but they were like mirrors. It's just exquisite, just great. There was also a sort of caramel colored suede look that was top to bottom suede, caramel colored, chef's kiss. So good. And another one of my absolute favorites, I don't know what else to call this, but the Oreo dress. It was the Oreo dress for me, but it was a dress. It looked like a sweater dress that was split in half. One side was black, one side was white. And you're thinking, I mean, okay, great. But then shoes matched. So she had one black shoe and one white shoe, and they were flipped. So on the white side, she had the black shoe, and on the black side, she had the white shoe. Perfection. But the look for me, was this dusty rose pink suit with a chocolate tie. I'm going to put a photo up. It was, I don't know if there were any shorts. It looked like it was dressed. So the suit top looked long enough to be sort of like a mini skirt, and you couldn't see what she was wearing on the bottom. So it was either just that, or they were like sort of baby tiny shorts underneath. Otherwise, every time I see that look, the one thing I do think about is Sharon Stone in Basic Instinct. Don't ask me why. But every time I see that look, I'm just like, I see you. But yeah, that was a fun sort of distraction for me. I love fashion, if you can't tell. I'm always talking about what they look like and stuff. And Sloane, thank you. Brittany Hampton, thank you. You guys delivered for sure. And another thing that I kind of saw floating around that I thought was fun. I had listened to it on Served podcast. Andy Roddick, I listened to his podcast, and I'd seen it on Served, and I saw that it gained traction once they posted a clip of it. But basically, Andy Roddick was saying tennis players are the best athletes out there. You know, he compared it a little bit to basketball, which is sort of like a 45-minute game in air conditioning. He has a point. And it was based off of the men's final at Roland Garros, which, again, if you don't know, you're new to tennis and you haven't heard yet, but it was 4.5 hours. There were no bathroom breaks. They took a sit-down break every 3 games, but that's still 4.5 hours on court, running around. That's a lot. It's almost, I've always compared tennis players to marathon runners, because I think to be on court, sprinting back and forth from the baseline to the net for 4.5 hours, that sounds like a marathon to me. And when I listened to it on his podcast, I thought, spot on, man. Finally, someone said it, because I do think tennis players are the best athletes. Of course, you know, there were detractors. There were people out there saying, no, it's not tennis players. And there was actually this post on Threads that I saw where a guy was saying, well, you know, call me when a tennis player can make a 3-point shot on a basketball court, sprint to the other end, and do it again. And the first thing I thought was, I don't know, hold my racket. And I remember I sort of quote tweeted it and replied, and I was like, Ben Shelton, do we want to do this? So if there's any weird kind of crazy way that Ben Shelton is listening to this podcast, Ben Shelton, I think you got this. I think you can do that. And maybe we can show this little guy on Threads that tennis players are the most elite athletes. And I will fight you on that. Okay, it's time. Let's talk about what's happening next week. Oh, real quick. Let's back it up. Before we talk about what's happening next week, Ilkley. Ilkley was a challenger in WTA 125 that was happening this past week. The winners were Eva Jovic and Tristan Schoolkate. And Nick went to the finals, and he sent us a little voice note to let us know what Ilkley was like.
So, just got into my car after visiting the Ilkley Open finals day. Really fun day. Really good setup they have there. I'd say if I was going to summarize the vibe of the event, it's very much festival, like English festival. Think music, think food, think, whatever you could think of. Maybe if you're not from England, it's hard to kind of get that, but from previous experience of these kind of events, that's what it felt like. We were basically out in the field with music being played, lots of food vans around, people milling about with drinks or whatever, families on a day out. It looked like a good fun, and obviously there was lots of tennis to be played. Definitely really lovely sort of tennis club. That seems to be where it's based at. It's interesting if you compare it to Wimbledon or somewhere like that, like even Birmingham. Like, you're walking on grass a lot of the time. Like, they just seem to fence off sections for tennis courts and paint lines, and then put some stand up around the centre court, which is where I was for most of the day. Yeah, lots to do. You're not short of food options if you come here at all, but you're also free to bring your own food, which I'd usually recommend anyway because it's a little bit cheaper. Would definitely say that certainly in terms of the event and the stands, like, I was surprised how big the stands were, and I picked up the program, which compares sort of what it looked like in 2015 to 2025, and my word, it's worlds apart. They're literally getting in hundreds, if not thousands, of people here now over the tournament, and I do think this is possibly like, if you live in the north of England, if you live in the northern part of the UK, this is probably a tennis tournament well worthwhile going to if you can't make it all the way down to London for all the other tennis tournaments. It's a really lovely event. The tennis was really good too. Eva Jovic, oh my word, she's good. She is such a good player. She outplayed Marino, the defending champion, pretty much most of that match. Right at the end, it got a bit close, but Eva Jovic saved every single break point that she had against her. She was clinical on every point that she needed to be. She was cleaner in her ball striking. There was just something about her. It felt like that was a match where it was a top player in the first round of a slam. And that might be what Eva Jovic becomes based on the trajectory that she's on. First title win on grass, really good for her. And a great first-time winner for the WTA 125K event that's here. The other match, I think the crowd were definitely disappointed that Jack Jones didn't win it, but no issues with Tristan Schoolkate, who seems to be having a pretty strong season on the whole. 3 challenger titles. He's been second round of both slams so far this year, and seems pretty quite comfortable on grass. And that was a really tough match for both players. It was so close all the way through. Yeah, lots of fun to watch that one, be there in person and sort of experience the waves and the seesaws of it all. Yeah, that was a fun time at Ilkley. I would definitely go back if I was able to. Maybe it's something I'll return to once I've ticked off all the other tennis tournaments in the UK, as many as I can. I do have hopes for visiting a couple of new ones next year. But overall, yeah, really good day at the tennis, fantastic venue, and I can see now why it's got the reputation it has as one of the best challenges in the world. So if you can get here, give it a visit. Highly recommend.
Fun fact, one of my favorite television shows of all time is Midsummer Murders. If you don't know what Midsummer Murders is, look it up. It is one of my favorite TV shows. I love sort of detective cop shows in general, but that's one of my favorite ones. And just looking at the photos that Nick sent from Ilkley just reminded me of Midsummer Murders. And wouldn't it be fun if there was sort of like a Midsummer Murder episode at a tennis tournament? If you know, you know, and Ilkley might have been like the perfect scenery for that sort of episode. But Ilkley sounds like so much fun. Just looking at the photos of the countryside and almost imagining this tennis tournament in the middle of a field just sounds so idyllic. So thanks for sharing that with us, Nick. And now on to what is happening next week. Well, next week I'm going to be watching the Berlin Open. Why? Because everyone's at the Berlin Open. The Berlin Open is a WTA 500 event, and 12 out of the top 13 players are there. 9 out of the top 10 players are there. The only player not playing it is Iga Swiatek. One of the first round matches is Elena Rybakina versus Qinwen Zheng. First round match. This draw is insane. It's crazy. I made a video about it on Instagram and TikTok. I will leave links below explaining why this is happening. Why, especially since qualifying was this past weekend. Ons Jabeur was playing qualifying. Anna Kalinskaya was playing qualifying. Anna Kalinskaya was in the finals of Berlin last year, and she had to play qualifying this year. Obviously her ranking wasn't as high, but she's ranked 29, I think, in the world. Sofia Kenin had to play qualifying, who's about 28 in the world. This is such a stacked draw. So watch my video to learn more about why it is the way it is. So definitely watching Berlin. Also, Nottingham is happening this week. It is a 250. Katie Bolter and a bunch of Brits will be there. It's also attached to an ATP Challenger. So the winners and finalists from Ilkley are going to head over there as well to play that tournament. And then the men are at Queens and at Halle. And that means Sinner is back. Carlos Alcaraz is going to be playing Queens. Jannik Sinner is going to be playing Halle. And a bunch of other players. I think in Queens, we've got Tiafoe, we've got Jack Draper, we've got Ben Shelton. Over in Halle, we have Daniil Medvedev, we have Alexander Zverev. So it's going to be a bumper week that is leading up to Wimbledon, which is in 2 weeks. Wimbledon is in 2 weeks. What are we going to do? Well, we're going to have fun. It's going to be exciting. Spoiler, if you came to our screenings at McCartney Park for Roland Garros, the screenings are back. We are going to be at McCartney Park again for Wimbledon. You, the podcast listener, are the first to find out, but we will start rolling out posters and dates and all of that soon. So stay tuned to our social media. Again, if you're listening to this on a podcast player of your choice, please give us 5 stars. Leave us a comment. We love to hear from you guys. If you're on YouTube, like and subscribe. Do the thing. We love it. Leave a comment. Tell us what you're excited for this grass court season. I'm looking at the time on this, and I'm pretty sure this is going to be a 40-minute episode. This is what happens. We get excited about talking about tennis, and we just keep talking. And until next time, bye guys.
Hershey's milk chocolate with whole almonds makes for a wholly amazing, wholly delicious experience that's, well, Holy Hershey's. Everyone should get to experience the satisfying surprise of a whole almond tucked inside creamy Hershey's chocolate. So don't wait your whole life to try Hershey's milk chocolate with whole almonds. And if you've already had it, then chances are you're already a lifelong fan of this confectionery delight. Find Hershey's milk chocolate with whole almonds wherever candy is sold.
Parents of tweens, if you're familiar with far-off drop-offs...
Dad, stop, right here.
Or get DMs about what's for dinner, you may be experiencing tween milestones. For your son or daughter, these can start at age 9. HPV vaccination, a type of cancer prevention against certain HPV-related cancers, can start then too.
For most, HPV clears on its own. But for those who don't clear the virus, it can cause certain cancers later in life.
Embrace this phase. Help protect them in the next.
Ask their doctor today about HPV vaccination. Brought to you by Merck.
Acast powers the world's best podcasts. Here's a show that we recommend.
Hi, I'm Pace Case.
And I'm Bachelor Clues.
We host Game of Roses, the world's best reality TV podcast. We're covering every show in reality TV at the highest level possible. We analyze The Bachelor, Love is Blind, Perfect Match, Vanderpump, and anything else you find yourself watching with wine and popcorn.
We break down errors, highlight plays, MVPs, and all the competitive elements that make reality TV a sport. And we interview superstar players like Bachelorette Caitlin Bristow and Big Brother champion Taylor Hale.
If you want to know so much about reality TV, you can turn any casual conversation into a PhD-level dissertation. You definitely want to check out Game of Roses.
Acast helps creators launch, grow, and monetize their podcasts everywhere. Acast.com.